This is a magazine review of Past Perfect Monthly. This is number 171. There's been so many great issues in the past, and this is no exception. Absolutely love this. January 2020, it's 80 pages, black and white and colour, a mix of. And it's a fun, thoroughly fascinating read all the way through. And I'm just going to go through the various articles and put my opinions as well, because there's a lot of great opinions, lots of insights, and I just love this. The first page, excellent. Great little bit, all about Captain Marvel and the Brie Larson film. I thoroughly enjoyed that film. I must admit, when I saw it at the cinema, I wasn't totally enamoured by it. I thought it was okay. I watched it again recently and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of those films, maybe on the third viewing, I might turn around and look at it and think, oh, I just don't like that film again. But it's one of those ones that maybe is just sort of, yeah. But I loved it. And that's what I'm going to go with. And it's just a great little article about it. Also, another one here. Rivals of Sherlock Holmes. It's nice that you mentioned that one. I must admit, thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched some of those fairly recently. I think there was one of the channels had Rivals of Sherlock Holmes. And, well, why not? Great stories, those old classic stories. And it's a pity that many of these sort of TV series that they put on nowadays, they don't dip into some of these old books that were created back in the Victorian age and, you know, develop some new ones. It doesn't always have to be Poirot, it doesn't always have to be Sherlock Holmes. There were some great characters that really should be mined and explored and really developed and also reminded. People, it'd be great to bring them back. So that's a lovely little article there. And also talks about Star Trek as well as also the way that TV goes, the way it's the audience, the TV, it's the adult as well as obviously how it's like turned into a more juvenile sort of Sesame Street, which I have to agree with lots of the comments about theatre and cinema. Sometimes you watch some of those brilliant shows in the 60s and 70s, especially on such as Talking Pictures channel. You watch them and think, wow, just great stories, just really brilliant, densely well-made, well-told, plotted stories. And you think, I mean, obviously not all of them are brilliant. Sometimes you look at them and think, oh, crumbs, that was terrible. But sometimes you think, wow, now you just get some of the stuff, well, maybe that's just me getting bored. Maybe, but I just think it's really nice, sort of lots of great points of view in here. And I said also another bit about Game of Thrones, about last season. Well, I had to say I quite enjoyed the last season. It was quite watchable. And the ends are never particularly great, I think, in any series. I mean, there's so many ends of series that I loved all those that I just think, oh, why? But of course, no one is ever going to be totally happy about how it ends. They want this or they want that. I think you're always going to have everyone's point of view on that one. So it is quite good that it did have lots of intrigues and various storyline that was quite good. And I loved the battles as well. Though I must admit, I did watch it on my projector, the major battle in the storm or wherever it was, the snow. I mean, literally, it was so I couldn't hardly make anything out. It was like I was thinking, what's happening? Just about maybe that was, of course, what they wanted. Maybe that was the intention. Just as but it was fascinating. I still thoroughly enjoyed it. It's still really good. And there's also some letters as well, and also about. I must admit, I've yet to see the finale episode of Big Bang. And now, obviously, I've read this, but it doesn't matter. I don't care about the spoilers or finding out things. You know, it's not the end of the world for me. Obviously, if I'm watching the show and like someone tells it, you know, and it's only just come out, and then you get spoiled. You think, oh, but a couple of months or years afterwards. So yeah, it's interesting and an interesting end to that. So I must check it out because I love Big Bang Theory. Not all of them were brilliant, but I did enjoy Sheldon, all those characters. Thunder Agents. Now this is really good. I love Thunder Agents, though the dialogue and some of them were clunky. They were very, and it's quite interesting, the comments about the style of the thing. It's definitely of, like I say, 1960s. Nothing looked like it didn't come from the real scientific and technological world of 1960s, possibly. But it was, they were just great little stories. And okay, they're not masterpieces. I don't think that you could look at, but there's still an unusual set of comics that you can look back and they're not Marvel, they're not DC, they're definitely their own unique, weird world that I thoroughly like. No Man, Dynamo, all the characters. And what's the other? Mentor, always thought that was a sweet or something, but anyway. Dynamo again. And also, of course, good old Iron Maiden and all the other characters. Then on to look Looking. I was going to say look and learn. No, Looking this time. And it's talking about time slip. I have to say I haven't watched Time Slip since probably the 1970s. So it'd be interesting to actually go, because on BritBox you've got Time Slip. So it's one of those episodes I've yet to see. Can't see everything, much as would be lovely to see every single show. I love obviously Magpie. Now, one unfortunate, Magpie not on BritBox. I would love to see them pile on loads of episodes of Magpie. And I love this bit. I remember these lovely converters. It's just great talking about the public service. They often put those things now. And also, of course, a little bit of Time Slip as well, which is really nice. And it really does look a really good comic. So I must admit, I can't recall the Time Slip. I didn't get that many issues of Looking. Wasn't an issue that I would pick up all the time. However, I remember this one, Marvel. Now, there's not much mentioned particularly, and I weirdly doesn't mention it here. Maybe he does, I haven't seen it. The cover, who actually did the artwork, etc. of that. And it's always quite fascinating. Now, it's obviously slightly different from this. You can see, obviously, the drawing there, clearly very different. Obviously similar story. Why did they change it? Why didn't they go with that original cover? Just baffling sometimes. They quite often did that. Sometimes they really did create some really good covers that were better, I think, than the American covers. But sometimes you think, why? Why change it? Rhino was always a bit of a... And it's interesting, the comments that are made here. Rhino was a bit of a second-rate character. He was against Spider-Man, sort of acceptable and quite good because, of course, Rhino, Vulture, Doc Ock, all those sort of obviously animal characters. Spider-Man, it sort of fitted. Though Kingpin was always a problem for me with Kingpin. You think, well, he never really fitted with the name. Green Goblin as well, I suppose, because that's obviously not an animal either. But you've got the Rhino against the Hulk. No. Juggernaut, yes, you could imagine Juggernaut, even though, of course, it was more the X-Men, but it was still Juggernaut you could understand as a character. Abomination. But Rhino was a real second-rater, and third-rater even, not in the same league. Anyway, you've also got the... now, this is interesting. I love the thing showing, obviously, they use there, you can see the cover. And always, quite often, they change things as well. Obviously, you've got lots of text there, which, of course, wasn't in there. They always did that. And also, they change things. And it's quite nice. He points out lots of areas where they change things. And you think, why? It always annoyed me immensely that they change things. Because often I knew that because I would have had the original comic or whatever, or maybe even Fantastic or Terrific as well. You had those originals, so you could look and think, why did they do that? I mean, who cares that this character had not appeared before? Giant Man turns up. It wasn't like I'm really thinking, well, I did realise there was a lot of Marvel Universe that was obviously not been shown yet. So just to rewrite it all the time, and quite often very badly, and you always knew because you would always have that sort of squiggly, that you could see the way it was like the writing just changed. Suddenly you have like very nice lettering, and I love lettering in comics. It bugs me when I see lettering that's suddenly very poor, and it's all you see, and you think, what? The president's name was that they would change it. You'd have like Nixon or something, or some other, and they would get rid of that. Or Kennedy, it'd obviously be Kennedy, and then suddenly Nixon would be, they'd draw something different. Why? We knew it from 1963, 1964. You do not have to need to change the characters. So annoying. I love the article here he mentions about the Hulk as well, the posters. That was terrible, wasn't it? And that one as well. I mean, you had I love those Marvel Masterwork pin-ups because there's a brilliant book, Marvel Masterwork pin-up book that's excellent. I don't know if it includes that one. Maybe it does. I don't know. Maybe that was a British one. It's very hard to tell from this picture because it's obviously very small. And though I must admit, I like the Lava Men one, but I love the way it's all blocked in, that sort of, bonus free with it. Wonder Weapon! Woohoo! Sadly, I got rid of mine ages and ages ago. Then on to Daredevil 158. I had that one many years ago. I wish I kept it. One of those ones I got rid of. And of course, at the time, I did not realise it was going to be Frank Miller, and it would go on to some amazing series of brilliant stories. I loved the Daredevil Frank Miller and all the characters as well. There's great, lots of comments made about that. This is what I like, the opinions in this. There's nothing worse than you get something that's just very, very obviously opinions all the way through this. Just great. You may not agree with it. You may agree with them. But it's just great that people put them. you think, yes, that's interesting. And also he puts lots of points out, things like Frank Miller's Daredevil and the End of Heroism, interesting, by Paul Young. So it's quite good sort of reference to something. You think, I might go and check that book out. Brilliant. So that's really, really excellent. The next article is iMud. One of the, as he mentions in this article, quite nice, unwatchable episodes. I have to say, unwatchable episodes are ones I quite often like to watch. I think, let's give it a go. Have another go at it. And sometimes, I must admit, this episode probably is unwatchable, but it's still quite good to watch. It has some great moments in it, and it's an interesting read, I must admit. Lots of great comments and points out things, and you think, yes, that is true. That is true. Some great observations, and maybe I should sit down and watch that today. Go and quickly watch that episode. iMud, 1967. Some classic. Now, I can never say that with Discovery ones. I have to say Discovery, I don't think I will ever rewatch any of the Discoveries. I just honestly can't put my hand on my heart and think of any episode that I think, you know what, I might enjoy watching that again. I mean, when I watch them, they're okay. Some of them, they're a bit. But the original series of Star Trek, I still love, and I can still put on like in Netflix, etc. And you watch it, and you think, what? That was a pretty good episode. Clunky in places, it has a certain thing. It's the American way. We're going to, the Federation, blah blah blah. And it's next one is She-Hulk. Love this one because it's got Blonde Phantom. Absolutely, and I thoroughly enjoyed the She-Hulk character. Really great, and of course it's got John Byrne's artwork and writing. Sometimes quite hit and miss, but sometimes when John Byrne was on form, I just thought great stories. And not only that, it's got, of course, Blonde Phantom from the 40s, and it's quite nicely done. It's quite sad, really, in many ways, because there's a bit where she's sort of thinking, I would have had my moment in the scene when all the other heroes came back. Why didn't I get back? Why wasn't I called back? And she should have appeared like in Strange Tales or something, maybe partnering with Human Torch. They could have done that. I don't know why they didn't do a sort of Human Torch and Blonde Phantom, Human Torch and Sun Girl, Human Torch and, that would have been quite good. But they were always, I love those Human Torch stories, but I think they could have just done some additional, sort of introduce some of the old characters back. Obviously for copyright reasons as well, of course. You would have straight away reintroduced them into them. And then, of course, people would have written in saying, bring back Blonde Phantom. I expect most people back in the 60s, unless they, of course, grow up on the old Atlas/Timely comics, probably wouldn't have known much about Blonde Phantom. I don't know if she might have appeared like in Fantasy Masterpieces or something. There might have been one. That was about it. You wouldn't have known about these characters. And I certainly wouldn't have known about them in the 60s or 70s. So it's nice that, and I probably, when this first came out, I remember when I bought this, I wouldn't have known who Blonde Phantom was then. I'm certain I would have gone, Blonde Phantom? Who? And yeah, the next one is Superheroes comic. That was a UK comic, of course. And Silver Surfer. Love that one. It's good. And I must admit, I love the references to, obviously, Mephisto, great character. And Shalabal. I will never say, I don't know if I ever say her name right. Got Shalabal there. Remains a weakling. So she always was. But at the same time, I have to say that if you met up with this guy suddenly appearing out in the blue, I'd probably be thinking, you know what? I'd probably be a bit, no. Well, so I think, to be fair, she probably didn't have the most amazing role in this, but why would she? I mean, she was like, it's no reason why suddenly this person, Silver Surfer, obviously Norrin Radd went off and he went off with that, but there's no reason why she was going to have to be able to stand against Mephisto, who is one of the powers of the universe. So it's a great little story. And also the X-Men here with Blob and the Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I always wondered about that also, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. I don't know if they ever called themselves that, but that was obviously the title they were given. For them, they were not evil. They were, as far as I'm concerned, they were fighting for mutant kind. Obviously, they were probably thinking that the Professor X and the X-Men were trouble. So, anyway. TV21, I love that. Absolutely brilliant, because that was an absolutely superb magazine. You got Fireball XL5, some great points about that. And I think there's been some series of collections of those. I think one came out fairly recent-ish. And so, but I really must check out more of it. Actually, it's quite fascinating just reading about Fireball X1 and also on to Thunderbirds. And there were some great points and comments. I agree with lots of things. The way they handled things, it was planned, thought about. Quite often when you get some comics, and there's some lovely examples, obviously here the comic, there's never any planning. You know, you've got this team and they all just rush off. Like the X-Men as well, they do all this sort of danger room training, and yet when it comes down to it, quite often they're shambolic. You know, they don't really think about how they're going to tackle these creatures or monsters or whatever. It's sort of or plan B, plan C, plan D. You know, there's that feeling of, and it's quite nice that we're here with the Thunderbirds, that they were clearly trained, and they really did, you know, and it was quite good for, and certain kids love those stories. And I did enjoy reading, and I've got quite a few collections of them now, and they're thoroughly enjoyable stories. Then on to Smash. So you got Smash here. And I didn't buy Smash as often as probably Fantastic and Terrific. I did occasionally buy Smash. I wouldn't say, and I also quite often picked them up in jumble sales. They would be in those bundles. You'd like get 10 for a penny or something, and you'd read it in about 5 minutes or 2 minutes. But it's interesting. It's brought out lots of characters. You think, you know what? These should be resurrected. Obviously, some of these would have problems now because, of course, Sergeant Rock. Now, I suspect because of names, etc. Obviously, the DC character. But it would be lovely if there was a collection of these characters. These characters have sort of been forgotten. It's actually quite interesting. If you like comic strip war stories, you'll probably like this. And I'm certain I probably would. Because at the time, I didn't enjoy them. But now I do appreciate them a little bit more. And you can read the stories, especially when you read them as a long flow of characters and you get to enjoy the stories. I think probably that one, Swats and But Lots. And it says here, writer/artist unknown. They were always quite good as well. There's a lovely picture there of the Swats and Lots. And then you're on to the Fantastic Four, The Brutal Betrayal of Ben Grimm. And this is one where Marvel did themselves in the UK always a disservice, always changing things. Why did they do that? They were always creating, it just made no sense. A lot of work for nothing, as far as I was concerned. And then the Mighty World of Marvel and Spider-Man did the same. They were always changing things. Why? Bugged me at the time. It still bugs me now. I got over it, but it's still quite, several references to Reed and Sue's wedding have been changed or removed. Why? It doesn't matter. Just because it's a story coming up later, because of the way they've done it, the order they've done it, that it just seems to be so pointless. I knew that there was a Marvel universe outside these comics. It wasn't like I was thinking, you know what, these comics are completely on their own world. You got Medusa. I loved the story. That was quite an unusual story with the old Frightful Four. Great. I wish they'd turn up more often, but anyway, sad to say they wouldn't. And there's also Destination Danger. That looks good. That looks really good, a bit of artwork as well. Great little story there. The Cloak. I remember The Cloak. I love The Cloak. Great character. And quite often they're only like 2 pages. It says here 2-page stories, very short. This one I don't remember. The Revengers mentions that. The Superman, Batman. You know what? I do not remember them being in that. Probably. It says here 2-page strips. Bob Kane, Al Pacino, etc. And I have to say those sort of World's Finest, those sort of stories, quite a lot of them are terrible. They were never my cup of tea. And so less said about that, the better. It was had weird colouring as well for some weird reason. Sammy Shrink, another one that says writer, artist unknown. Sammy is no longer being given a prize back page colour slot. King of the Ring. Yeah. Percy's Pets. And again, this is only half page. So half page. As I said, you almost get the impression they're taking it out. It's possible. As a guest artist occasionally looks at it and thinks, you know what, I'm having a bad day. So Mighty Thor, if the thunder be gone. And I expect they probably changed odd things in this as well. I love that one with, of course, the Circus of Crime. Good old Ringmaster. Never, unfortunately, did very well for himself. And obviously there was a lot of stories in this. You really got your money's worth in terms of Jungle Fortune. The art is decent enough, it says here. And then Brian's Brain. That's a bit of a mouthful. Brian's Brain. Venture Strip, 2 pages. Now, a lot of these should be, hopefully, at one point, Rebellion will be collecting all these sort of stories. Lots of these short stories. I would love to see them all again. Now, maybe some are better than others. Some you probably, so maybe a best of. It would be really great to have the best of, maybe a couple of volumes of the best of stuff from Wham and Smash. These sort of mini stories. And then maybe over time, maybe they will bring it, people turn around and say, I would love to see more of that character. Then they could bring out a collection of, a complete collection, 64 pages even, whatever, if they weren't very long strips. Bad Penny, Nerves, remember the Nerves one? And you got, again, lots of great examples there. Just brilliant. TV Tornado magazine, for some weird reason I never read, which is odd because it looks pretty good. Obviously Tarzan in it, Man from U.N.C.L.E. I don't know why I never bought it. I must have done. I must have bought some copies. Dan the TV Man. But I honestly have to say I do not love that one. Sue Lloyd, Baron's Girl, definitely. And Flash Gordon, because I loved all those Flash Gordons and the Phantom. Magnus, Robot Fighter. Again, they were of their time. Gold Key Comics and King features. And yeah, they were interesting. But again, they're saying, like most of the story, the episode has been trimmed very lightly. Only 2 panels have been removed. Why did they remove anything? They always restructured things. I suppose because of adverts, they had to fit in things or whatever, or page count. But it just, of course, at the time, I probably wouldn't have noticed it when I was, when I was very young. But now it just bugged me occasionally. You get annuals or books, and you can see it's clearly been messed around with, and you look at it and go, why? But anyway, last issue marked a new high watermark and I must look out for some copies of TV Tornado. So, Lion. I love Lion as well. There were some great things. Carson's Cubs. Obviously, he's got a picture there of that one. And Carson's Cubs again. Bit of an article about that. Background of lots of stories about that. And next, The Fugitive from the Planet Skrull, whatever. General Johnny. I remember General Johnny. And Marvel team-ups. This one, Mighty Avengers and the Uncanny X-Men. The last bit, Rogue Storm. And that's it. I absolutely think this is an absolutely superb collection of articles, essays about this. And there's this, just came with it as well. And I will be ordering a few more, because I think there's some absolutely crackingly good things. And it's got obviously the prices, the cost obviously of postage, etc. But it's got a really, really nice list of all of the different stories there. The articles that are in the different issues. Like 182, you've got big feature, Them, TV 21, Time Slip and Look In Again, Daredevil 169, Avengers 98, X-Men 157, Star Trek Return to Tomorrow. Yeah. And TV Tornado 28. Obviously, there's a bit of a similar to that one there. Thunder Agents, Mighty World of Marvel 62, and also Superheroes issue 15. Now, obviously, going back some earlier ones, you've obviously got Silver Surfer, lots of. Okay. But going back to say some of the early ones, just quickly running through this: 141, 120, Star Trek Dagger of the Mind, Sapphire and Steel, Son of Frankenstein. So it covers a lot of great comics material. And obviously, I would recommend just getting this list and going through it thinking, you know what, that would be a great one to get. Really good articles. So totally recommended. And even this one at the back, which is, I must admit, I'm not a mega, I've got the omnibus edition, but I'm not a mega fan of the Legion. They're okay. They had some good stories, and they had some pretty tough stories as well. But it's, I think this is just brilliant. Absolutely hope these keep coming out. These Past Perfect monthlies, just brilliant volumes. Excellent.